You ever get that feeling that maybe, just maybe, your life is following some kind of script? Well, today we're going to dig into a really fascinating philosophical text that tackles that very question. We're talking about life's biggest mysteries. Is our free will actually real? And how are we supposed to live a good life if there's some kind of cosmic screenplay we're all meant to follow?
The author kicks things off with this beautiful, really powerful analogy. Think about it. Stars don't choose their path across the night sky, right? The text suggests that maybe, just maybe, our lives follow a similarly determined orbit. This one idea, it sets the stage for everything we're about to explore.
All right, so here's our roadmap. First, we'll look at this idea of a life script. Then, we'll wrestle with the paradox of free will. After that, we'll ask if our effort even matters. Then dive into what it means to play our part well, uncover the universe's hidden rules, and finally, see what this text says is the path to harmony.
So let's jump right in. The text doesn't just suggest we have a general path. Oh no. It claims there's an entire script, with every single scene already written out, from your very first breath to your very last. And this script is apparently incredibly specific. We're not just talking about the big picture. According to this philosophy, it's everything. Your name, how your personality changes over time, the exact people you're going to meet, the very words that will come out of your mouth, even the hardships and illnesses you'll face. It's all part of the plot.
Okay, so right away, this brings up a huge problem, doesn't it? If everything is already written, what about that feeling we all have that we're making our own choices? What about our agency? Is our free will just an illusion?
And here is where the text throws a major curveball. It says our free will is absolutely real, but it's not a tool for changing the script. Instead, our free will is the very source of all our suffering, our anxiety, our frustration, our pain. So, how does that work?
Well, this is where the conflict happens. The suffering doesn't come from the role you're given. It comes from the gap between that role and the one your will desperately wants. Maybe the script casts you as a quiet mouse, but your will wants to be a thundering elephant. It puts you in a small hut, but your will is screaming for a five-star hotel. It's this clash, this friction, that's the real root of all our unhappiness.
So here's the key. The moment you stop fighting the script, when your personal will lines up with your given role, that internal war just dissolves. And what's left behind? Peace, joy, and what the author calls true freedom. It's not freedom to do anything. It's freedom from conflict.
Naturally, this leads to another giant question. I mean, if our fate is already sealed, why bother? Why work hard? Why try to get better? Why strive for anything at all? Does our effort even matter?
The text answers this with an old saying, which basically means, once you're in the river, you can't control your own body. The argument here is that even our effort and our struggles are just more lines written into our part. You don't choose to strive. The script compels you to.
But wait, it's not quite that simple. The author adds a really important layer here. Think of it like a play. The plot points, the constants, they're totally fixed. But who gets cast in which role in the next play? Those are the variables. And that can actually change based on how well you perform this time around.
And that changes everything. It shifts the entire goal of life. It's no longer about trying to rewrite the script. It's about delivering a masterful, unforgettable performance of the role you've been given, no matter what that role is.
And here's where the text makes a really bold claim. A villain who plays their part with total commitment and conviction is actually judged more favorably by the universe than a hero who just phones in their performance. It's all about the quality of the acting, not the role itself.
So how do you know if you're doing a good job? The author gives us a kind of internal scorecard. The proof is right there in your emotional state. If you feel a sense of inner peace, if you feel joy and gratitude, no matter what's happening on the outside, you are absolutely nailing your performance. But if you're constantly filled with anxiety, worry, and fear, you're still fighting the script.
Okay, so if we're going to play our part well, we need to understand the stage we're on, right? That means we have to understand the fundamental rules of the game, what the author calls life's unseen constants.
So what's a constant? It's simple. It's a rule that does not bend. It's a fixed part of the system's design. It's an absolute truth that you just can't argue or negotiate with. We all get constants in math and physics, like pi or gravity. But this text takes that idea way further. It suggests that things in our personal lives are also constants, like the total number of breaths you'll ever take, or the total amount of wealth you'll ever have. They're all predetermined quantities.
And all these constants work together to create this incredible system of balance. This quote really captures it. The universe is a self-correcting system. Nothing is allowed to get too out of whack. It always, always returns to the middle. And you can see this cosmic balancing act play out in our lives. If you get too arrogant, life will find a way to humble you. If you indulge too much, you'll eventually find yourself wanting. In this worldview, what goes around really does come around, because it's a fundamental law of the system.
So, with all this in mind, the cosmic script, these unchangeable rules, this whole balancing act, what are we supposed to do? How do we live a good life inside this kind of framework?
The text gives us two paths to find that harmony. The first one is to just align yourself with the natural flow of things, to accept what comes your way. The second path is to act with pure selflessness, to give and contribute without expecting anything back. These are presented as the only two ways to work with the system instead of constantly fighting against it.
So really, the whole point of this entire philosophy comes down to this one idea. True freedom isn't the power to change your destiny. It's that inner state of peace you find when you completely accept your destiny and you commit to playing your part with everything you've got.
And that's the big question we want to leave you with. In a world that tells us we need endless options and the power to be anyone we want, this text asks us to think about a totally different kind of freedom. So which one do you think really leads to a better life? Something to think about.